What is going on, guys? My name is David Piatek with VA Housing Education, and I have Lourdes Fernando with me as well. Say hi, Lourdes.
Hi, David. I'm Lourdes Fernando.
Well, thank you for everyone for joining us today. Today's episode is a little bit different, right? So with VA Housing Education, we specialize in educating the military community around the VA home loan and also working with the real estate community so you guys can win more contracts and just have a better overall experience. So we're going to take a step back. We're going to share our experiences with helping military members through the eyes of being on the lending side and the real estate side. Because Lourdes, as a realtor, she's going to talk about that. My background is in lending. This is why we did this as instructors for VA Housing Education, because we have that background to be able to help people, right? But there's a lot of people that are interested in real estate, right? Even if it's part-time or full-time, people dream of real estate, right? Or dream of helping people. And there's different career paths you can take and how to get there. So Lourdes, I'll let you talk about a little bit, your background and, what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Lourdes Fernando. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I served 11 years in the military, the Army National Guard, California Army National Guard, although I live in Chicago now, but served 11 years there. And then I was a military spouse where I traveled around, which was very difficult for me to find jobs, to find something that I can really evolve with. And I always had a passion for real estate ever since I was 22 years old. I was like, I'm going to be this big time flipper when I get out the military. And that was my goal. So I wanted to get somewhere in the industry. My plan was to become a flipper, which I think now I'm going to start to do that. But when I came to Chicago, I wanted to learn the area, and I said, okay, I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to learn the area, and then I'm going to be this big flipper, blah, blah, blah. Well, once I started to actually do real estate, I fell in love with it. And I was really excited that I was able to help veterans. So David and I, we do assist a ton of veterans. And this is a way that I can give back on how to be able to strategically use the VA home loan. I became a landlord 2 years ago, and I'm not looking back, and now I'm teaching and training everybody I know about this life. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely a great way to build passive income, a great way to add to your portfolio. And I mean, who doesn't, love making money when they sleep? I do. So
That's a good
this
thing.
is a great way. Yep, that's a good thing. Sometimes I hear my Airbnb downstairs. I hear them making noise, and I'm like, "Oh man, my money is waking me up." That's okay. I'm gonna go back to sleep.
That's awesome.
But it's just something that I have a big passion for. And although it is very awesome, we are going to get into the nitty gritty of things because it can be a little crazy because people don't think you have lives.
That's a work-life balance, right, Lourdes? They all make it sound so nice on TV and on social media.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I actually should probably give a little bit of background about myself. So I've been in the mortgage space for the last 18 years. I teach real estate across the country. I serving for the last 14 years in the Army Guard. Love it. And probably about 7 years ago, I changed my focus to helping military families and military members understand the VA loan, because I'm like, I'm doing this, and I got a lot of folks that I know they're just asking me a lot of questions. I'm like, this is something that's actually needed for the community. So that's why also we have VA Housing Education. So yeah, thank you for that, Lourdes. And we've helped lots of people, and we want to kind of, and a lot of people get into real estate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if a lot of people have bad experiences themselves buying property, and then they end up becoming realtors for that. That's you. Right. So it's like, there's all these hidden things that have that, right? So in today's format, right, there's exciting things and there's some boring things like like some of the licensing requirements. It's not going to be that exciting. But what we're going to talk about is going to be the two primary subjects, which is going to be being a realtor, which is the correct way to say it, not realtor, realtor, and also from the lending side. So from being a loan officer side, like which I'm going to be talking about. Now we're going to talk about some of those sub things like careers within that space, because sometimes people don't want to necessarily go into a, let's say, sales role, which I'm going to kind of explain what that looks like, right? And some people want to be able to do it part-time. How do you get started in that? So we're going to go over all those things around that, right? So I'm going to kick it off with talking about some of the lending requirements. Now, I do have to look at a sheet of paper because there can be a lot of different things that go into that, okay? Being a loan officer, right, is a sales position where you actually originate the mortgages for the client, for clients, right? What is involved with that is that you have to be able to know a lot of information about different loan products that are out there, right? We're veterans, so you have VA home loans, you have conventional loans, you have FHA loans. So there's a certain knowledge set that you need to gain, but you learn that through various different aspects and different tools that are out there. There's two main types of licenses you can get. One, working for a bank, so you get a federally chartered license, which actually allows you to originate in all 50 states, including District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Guam, which is, I've never done a loan in Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, or Guam, but that kind of sounds cool, but also sounds difficult. And then, the other component to that, you also have the broker side, where you would have to be state licensed. Now that's a little bit tougher because you have to get individually licensed, right? Because like Lourdes, you guys you don't have like a federal, you have different parts to the test. I know that, but you have to be licensed in each state. You can't just be like, hey, I'm licensed to do real estate in all 50 states. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So but on a federal side, you actually can lend in all 50 states. Like I'm federally licensed. So I can lend in all 50 states off the bat without doing a lot of the education, right? So there's pros and cons to all of that. Now, if you guys are also watching, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button to VA Housing Education so you can get more educational content like this. And if you guys are also interested in any of the stuff we're talking about, you can reach out to us directly, because I know that even at where I'm working, we're hiring people, right? Part-time or full-time, Laura, same thing. It's like, if you're interested, we're definitely interested in talking with you guys about that stuff. So kind of go back to what we were talking about. A banker, a mortgage banker, you're federally licensed in all 50 states. If you're a mortgage broker, you have to get individually licensed in each state you want to operate, which most people work in the same state they work with, that they live in. But unless you're working with veterans, they're working across the country. Now, there's a couple things that you do have to know when becoming a broker. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit boring. Right? There's a 20-hour pre-licensing course you have to take. You have to pass a national exam and a state exam in order to get your license. You do have to pay some fees. On average, for the national exam, it's $92 and then $69 per state exam. You do have to be at least 18 years old because you have to be held liable. You have to clear a background check. You have to get a credit check, and you can't have any felonies in the last 7 years, or if you ever had a felony related to financial services, such as fraud, theft, bribery, check fraud, things like that. Now, credit is important because you are working for a financial institution. This is why also we have a lot of classes on understanding finances and understanding credit, because it plays a big role in what you do. But they're going to look at it. Every lender is going to have a different requirement. Like some might allow lower credit scores, others maybe not. I'm not sure how that works within that space. But those are just like the basic requirements that a lending company is going to have as far as that component. Now, Lourdes, let's break it up a little bit, because I can go on kind of into the day in the life, but I already said too much just on the licensing requirement. Talk to me a little bit about real estate and tell me what the licensing requirements are. And then we'll kind of go back and forth like some of the day in the life stuff, because it's somewhat similar. It's horrible and it's also exciting at the same time. So
yeah. So being a real estate agent, we are pretty much the glue of the transaction. So we are the compass in helping individuals find their homes, their forever homes, their investment properties. So what we do is we pretty much navigate the entire transaction. So we're dealing with the lenders, the attorneys, the home inspectors, everybody in between. We just have to make sure everybody is doing what they need to be doing so the file can continue. So pretty much let's see. So the duty descriptions, it's a lot. We do everything to include, sometimes we're therapists, sometimes
Yes.
I mean, pretty much everything we do. Hold on. So we do the property. So we do generate leads. That's probably the biggest thing that keeps our pipeline full so that we have clients. So we have to learn how to generate leads. So, some people they'll call, they'll go out and network with individuals, things like that. And that is kind of the bloodline of your business, is the lead generation. You also have to assist your clients and making sure that they know what they're doing to complete the process. We have to take them to tours. We have to navigate them, educate them about the properties, any type of deferred maintenance. We conduct the showings. We assist in pulling numbers just to make sure that the property is going to appraise. We're there with them during the home inspections. We collaborate with other professionals, as I explained before. We utilize technology and online platforms so that we can communicate with all parties in addition to our clients. And that's pretty much what we do in a nutshell. There's a lot more things that go into becoming a real estate agent. And these are one of the jobs that, ironically, it's not so much money to get started. So we do have a lot of agents that are part-time, or they do take this position on full-time, or start off part-time and then become full-time. I know my first year I didn't make too much. I made probably about $6,000 my first six
Sounds right.
months in the business. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Uh, so once I got that lead gen going and I was able to get the lead gen sources coming through and networking and what have you, then of course my business did change. So I know the test doesn't talk anything about lead gen or anything about running a business, but it's very important to be able to partner with lenders, to partner with different professionals in the business to help that grow. And then some of the testing requirements. So you do have to complete a 90-hour course, which is a lot, but you do have to complete the 90-hour course and then successfully pass the real estate exam and then go to a brokerage so you can hang your license. So the exam actually is 140 questions. You have 1 year to pass it, 4 attempts, and it costs $58 every time you take it. Now, this can vary from state to state, but here in Illinois, that's the rules here. And then there is a license application fee for $125. Now, the pre-license education courses, they can charge anywhere between $500 to $600. And if you are a veteran, the Chicago Association of Realtors, they do have a scholarship program that can cover 100% of the fees for the education, which is great. And nobody
That's
takes
awesome.
advantage of that. Yeah.
Well,
So
just note too on that is that there's actually a lot of associations nationally that offer those types of programs. So check with just type in, like if you're in Nashville, type in Nashville Association of Realtors, something will pop up. So whatever city you're in, it at least will guide you to the right area. And you can just call that association and ask them, like, do you guys have some type of veteran or veteran spouse licensing? But also companies offer them as well, right? Like Lourdes, you're at Keller Williams. Do they have like a program to give people free licenses?
They do. So
Awesome.
this is, yeah, you can actually get this 100% covered we use what's called case score, where they go in and they ask a few questions, and then you have someone from the office that helps you and, make sure that you're taking your classes. It's self-paced, which is awesome, and it's free.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think that's pretty cool, because some companies, I know when I first came in and I didn't ask nobody, I didn't know that there was a scholarship, and it's been around forever. I didn't know about the
Yeah, I
scholarship.
know that one. Yeah.
And, I had to pay for my own classes. And when you're barely getting started in this business, like you have to put a lot of money into it because you're not getting anything back. And I remember when I first moved here, I moved from Washington State. I'm from California, but I moved from Washington State and I didn't know anywhere. They're like, yeah, do you know anything about South Shore? I'm like, I don't see that on the map. Like, I had no idea that that was a neighborhood of Chicago. I was like, is that like, wait, where is that? So I was like, oh man, like this is going to be interesting. So hence why I only made, a little bit of money within the first 6 months of my real estate career. But I'm a fighter, and I'm like, I'm going to make this happen, and I'm going to learn all the neighborhoods in Chicago and all the suburbs, and that's what I did. But
It's a lot of them
so
too.
a
Wow.
lot.
There's a
Yep,
lot.
over 70.
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, there is the license there is an application fee for your real estate license. So there's the test and then there's the application fee, which is roughly around $125. And then when you join the MLS, which is the multiple listing service, there is also fees there to operate and be able to use that. And it just depends on when you sign up. The average for our MLS is right around, I think it's like, oh man, I already forget. They always take my money, but it's right around that 1,500, and it just depends on what time of the year that you sign up. You have to just pay for that, and every physical year
Okay.
it changes.
I gotcha. Yeah. And then every area has a different MLS system, right? So you have Bright MLS on the East Coast, like in the DMV area, you got MRED, which is like in the Midwest. So that all varies, but like at least if you can get started, because that's like a barrier. I mean, that is a barrier to entry, right? Because you got to put time in, right? Because you have to put in those class hours. You definitely have to study outside of that. It's not like it's almost like taking the bar. It's to get to become an attorney, right? The book is like this thick and it's 140 questions. I'm like, it's that thick. How is it only 140 questions from that? So you kind of have to have a broad like understanding. But I've looked at those exams, and a lot of times you can almost like you could look at it and be like, I can tell, 2 out of the 4 answers are definitely no. Then it's like 50-50. So because I think, what do you need? 70% to pass on that exam?
If I remember correctly, I think it is
60?
80%. Yeah,
Yeah, I
right.
wish it was
I don't know. I
lower.
took it one time and then I was like, you know what, I'm done.
I know, I know. And the
Yeah,
nice thing,
it's a pass and fail. Like they won't tell you like
yeah.
you got, so many. I was like, oh, just give me my paper. I'll come back and I'll take it next month. And then she was all like, you passed this. And you gotta be kidding me. I was so nervous. Like that it was there are some I think one is like, okay, it's not this one, but 3 are really like, which one of these 3? So it's
Right.
not maybe it was easy for you, David, but for me I was like, oh my gosh. But luckily I passed on my first time around. And then you literally, none of what I learned on the test was actually helping me to build my business and to do it. Just helped me to stay out of jail. so
Right.
so
It's like
or
a
fined.
compliance thing. It's not even
It's a
like they're not
compliance.
telling you to day in, day out. They're just giving you like, what do you need to know to pass it? So yeah, you don't go to jail. So
Yep.
that's awesome, Lourdes. Yeah, let me talk a little bit about the day in the life, because I always think too from the lending side, we're like the project managers, right? And like Lourdes is, and when Lourdes mentions when talking about the like what they control from their side, at least what I see, the actual real estate portion, right? The actual home, because like you mentioned, like you sometimes a therapist. I get that, because real estate should be a financial decision, but it's more of like, well, we love this house. We want this house for our family. It's because of blank, blank, and blank. So it gets really emotional. And people obviously have 2 sides to the transaction, and you have attorneys sometimes, like in Illinois. So that just kind of creates havoc at times, right? And from our end, we're always worried about the finances, right? Does the money make sense? Is there issues with the appraisal, right? If issues come up, how are we handling that? So from a lending side, it's also the barriers to entry are low, right? I feel a lot of people can get into this. Either you get a federally, which you get instant license, but then you don't really, you need someone to really coach you, right? I think a lot of times success in lending and real estate is having the right mentors, right? That you kind of need that because of how much information you have to know. I've been doing this for a while, but people that I know have been doing this 5 or 6 years, 20 years will reach out to me like, David, hey, I got a VA question, or like head of underwriting. Hey, David, I have a VA question. And I'm like, why are they calling me? Right. Just because, it takes a while to like really grow the knowledge. Again, it's a lot of times it's the products you got to know. You got to generate business like you, Lourdes, right? You guys are out there working with consumers. We're working with consumers and realtors to help them with their business, getting clients pre-approved, making sure it's done correctly, because there's a lot of times that they're not done correctly, and really updating parties, right? Lourdes, we both have good experience because we've done a lot of business. I work with realtors on a national level, and you work with also lenders on a national level because they might be all over the country. You see good loan officers and you see bad loan officers. What makes, in your eyes, somebody that's good at being a lender, right? For me, I'm biased because I'm like, I'm in it, but from your end, like, what do you see a good lender do? Like, what are traits, qualities, what anything?
Yeah. So like how you said, this is the biggest financial decision that a client's going to be, or a customer is going to be making. And one of the biggest things is the communication between the lender and the client. So when I have anything that goes wrong in the transaction, whether it's the inspector or anybody, the client always comes to the realtor, and the realtor
They
has to
do.
navigate through that. And I'm like, call the lender. So a good lender will be proactive and take the client and just make sure that they thoroughly understand the documentation, what they're signing. The loan packets are so big, and I see so many times where lenders just send it off and for signature. And especially in the military world, they give us paperwork. We just sign. We don't know what we're signing. And these are very important documentations. And then when the client comes to me, I'm like, I have no idea what I signed. Lourdes, can you tell me? I'm like, and I don't have access to any of these things because their whole life story is on there.
Right.
So it just depends on the relationship that I have with my clients on how much information they give me. But when a loan officer can communicate with them in a way that they understand what they're signing, it makes things so much easier. What is Tidewater? What is coming back when it did not appraise, or the appraisal? Hey, Lourdes, the lender just sent me this appraisal. I have no idea what it appraised for.
Right.
Why is the lender not going through the appraisal with their clients and saying, hey, the property appraised, I'm available if you want to go over the appraisal. This is very important. And I don't see any of the lenders doing that except you, David. So I know when I have a good lender on my side that's really good with communication, someone who can reach out to their clients, take them off the ledge, because a lot of times they're like, what the heck is
Yes.
going on? And be able to work with the client and say, okay, I understand your, I understand you feel that way, but what I found was this, that, and the other, and let me explain this to you. It makes our job so much easier. The communication, I think, is the best.
Yeah. I mean, but that's like in life, relationships. If you have good communication, no matter if things go wrong, you're able to at least talk it through. Because like I would love to think that no matter how perfect something may seem, every transaction has problems, every single one. No matter how clean it is, clients may never see it, but that's where experience comes in the background to fix things, or whatever the case may be, right? Everyone's situation is different, but that's why from a lending side, majority of transactions require financing. When lenders screw up, we see this all the time because you call me and I got to fix it, is that, and this is like, it happens more often than not. When you're in the lending side, you're really helping people to get a piece of that American dream, right? They put a lot of faith in you. So if you don't know the products, you mess them up, it affects families, right? Same thing on the real estate side. It definitely affects people on that side.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of a craziness to it. I would say for salary wise, right? Compensation wise, I'll talk about a little bit about that. It can range anywhere from 6,000 a year to 15.7 million.
Oh, geez.
So it's tough to say. The average though is 57,500, which I think is same thing in real estate. It's like 60 grand or something.
60 grand
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So when you look on TV and you see all these like fancy people, like those, you're talking about the top 1%, right? Top 1%, same thing. You're making half a million or at least a quarter million or more a year. And from the lending side, it's tough though, because you are self-employed in a way, right? Like real estate, you're 1099. Lending, you could be your W2, right? You can't be 1099. That they changed the rules not too long. They changed that a long time ago, actually. What am I saying? That was a long time ago that you can't, you had to switch like that. So what I think makes the difference between people that succeed and don't succeed in the lending side, one, you have to give it time. Nothing happens overnight. I think you need a really good support system, right? Because there's going to be times, there's going to be some tough times. I promise you. Lourdes, you can relate to that, right? And I think I speak for the both of us when I talk about some of these things, because we've been there where there was a period of time where we didn't make money, like didn't make money at all, or just barely making it by, or working different jobs to make up for that. But if you stick with something for between 5 and 10 years, you will be successful at it as long as you constantly advance your knowledge, you build out a network, right? Some people are really good with social media. Like, I like doing this, but I'm not out there in the bushes taking videos of myself like, guys, just saw a property, like, or just something that's, you have to kind of cater to who you are, right? And grow your business that way, because you put the time in, it definitely is going to pay off. It's just when it pays off, that part is tough to say. And, yeah. Because I mean, think about today's market, right? If I were to say, hey, today's a great time to get into real estate, people would be like, you're insane, right? Markets, no one's selling their homes, rates are high. To that, I'll tell you that this happens all the time. It's cyclical, right? Values go up, values go down, rates go up, rates go down. It's normal. And every time this happens, it just weeds out all the people in the industry that just come in it for the short money making part. And then they get rid of all of them. And now the people that stick around, they will be able to work with more agents, provide more education and content. So, because it should be more education. Like, we don't sell anything, we educate. And if people want to work with us, great. So I think people sometimes confuse, like, I don't want to go into sales, I'm not a salesperson. Well, if you have a job, you have to sell that you have a job every day. Otherwise, you'll be fired. It's just how you look at it, right? You're not out there like a used car salesman. I don't know.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, Lourdes?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Yeah. So just like how you said, you have to build your book of business. My first year, I think it was not the best. And even, caused some issues in the family because I was giving so much time to this business, and it was like, but I've been an entrepreneur since I've left the military in 2013, I believe. Yeah, 13. And I was in grad school and I was driving for Lyft, Uber, delivering packages for Amazon and not managing flips, but overseeing flips for a local investor that was in Seattle. And I was out there grinding. I was like, this real estate is my thing. Like, I see it, and it's I can see it crystal clear. It's going to be mine. But I had to do certain things to get to where I wanted to be to gain that experience. So because I had that knowledge, now when I walk properties with clients, I'm always picking it, I'm showing them all these things, which really, really helps with what we do, because the client feels like, hey, you're actually looking out for me, and this, and you're trying to watch out for me. You're not just in it to get a sale, or you're not just in it for the wrong reasons. And those people do get filtered out if you're in it just to make some money and super flashy and, this, that, and the other. And now you can't keep up with that lifestyle because real estate is going down or up, and there's a ton of phases. So you do have to really, really ask yourself, why am I doing this business? And your why has to be good enough to proceed.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen that too many times too, where I just see either lending or real estate professionals is super flashy. It's just like, those are like when you're thinking of salespeople, like those you're thinking of those people. But plenty of times you can have a very successful business with helping people and educating people.
Right.
But that's
So
why people like
David,
working with you. Yeah.
yeah,
Because you're not, there's no, the attitude should be, at some point you'll work with me, but if I screw you, you'll never work with me, and then you'll never refer anybody. And I think that's the issue, right? Too, of like, some people might start off and say, well, I need this money. Well, that's not,
yeah,
it's tough. But that's why it's nicer when you're later on in your career, where it's like, well, we do this or not, like whatever you want to do, that's what we do. Like, we cancel deals all the time because clients don't want to go through for whatever reason. There's not a
right,
reason to then talk them out of it unless it's like something legit. But if there's an issue, pop smoke, get out, right? Especially since we
right.
work primarily with military families, because people PCS and they move all the time, which I guess that's leads me into that section of our business. My job, I can work anywhere in the world as long as I have a cell phone and a laptop. Anywhere. I could work part-time, I could work full-time. I could work night shift if I wanted to, which when I was deployed, I technically did. My assistant ran it during the daytime, or I ran 10 p.m. to 2 p.m. and then he would run it for the rest of the day. So we had 24-hour operations. The one time, when I was deployed last time. So it's definitely possible to do that. You can make a career working part-time. We work with a lot of people that can do it. It's not hard. But Lourdes, can you work anywhere in the world?
Absolutely. Yep. I worked when I was in Kabul. To a certain extent. Now I cannot be there for a long period of times. I
Right.
can work. I think I took 22 days off on a really, really, really busy year. And I took pictures for listings before I left. I did all these things. And then I also have a business partner who covers down when I leave. He covers down. So if I need anything, he got me. He has to be there in person. Now, being in real estate, you do have to be you have to be there physically, unless you build this mega team. Then I know an agent. He hasn't left his house in a very long time, and he operates this really, really big team, and they're out there doing what they got to do. So there are some opportunities for you to go a little bit more remote if you need to. And unless you want to work on your own, and if you're generating all these leads and all this business, then you can grow that team. So I guess you can, if that is part of your goal and that's what you want to do. But if you are just starting out, you cannot do that. You have to be
Right.
here grinding. And I know when I went to Japan this year, I was in a complete different time zone, and I could not do what you did, David, because I was like, nope, I can't do it. Sorry. So I did have my partner actually cover down for me all the way through. And when I first got started, I remember I was on a team, and I was able to leverage that team so I can get some days off, or maybe I gave her some days off.
Right.
And I was the leverage. So when you start a team and you're growing and you're learning, then that's where it's at. And then eventually you can do that if you wanted to.
That's awesome. And I think we're going to lead to that next, but let me ask you a question, because I travel a lot between DC and Chicago. And so a lot of veterans that are active duty military members, spouses of active duty military members, always ask me, like, if I get a real estate license. So let's say you're in Virginia, you have a Virginia real estate license, and you PCS to Hawaii. You still have a license in Virginia. Can you technically still make money even though you're not in the state that you're from? Or like you're in the state that your license is not in?
Yeah, so I know a ton of people who are specifically military spouses who they can sell their book of business or continuously work on their book of business when they are in one area and they PCS or move to another area. So absolutely 100%. I know
That's
my
awesome.
mentor, she moved out of the state and she still calls her entire database here and she just gets referrals and referrals and referrals off of
Wow.
the business here. And she's also generating business where she's at currently and actively being a real estate agent. So there is a way that you can structure your business that way in case you do have to PCS and or if you wanted to build a team. So the purpose of, because I was at the time a military spouse, my plan was to go with my spouse and then to build a team here. So once again, they can continue with all the leads that we have and kill it here while I'm over there starting the business in a new area. That way you don't have to start from zero, kind of like what I did. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. And I think it's perfect for military individuals. I do have a lot of military clients right now that are active duty looking at multi-units so they can get into the space. And we are going to be talking about property management and some other aspects of real estate that you can do if you don't want to become a real estate agent or also a lender. So
Right. Yeah, because
yeah.
there's definitely things, because either you're afraid to jump in right away, but there's definitely things that you can do to get ready to potentially be a loan officer. So one of the things that you can do is become a loan officer assistant or a processor. Okay. Basically, a loan officer assistant assists a loan officer in some of their daily activities. They do a lot of follow-up. They follow up with clients. They help with the pre-approval. It's like an easy way to get like the basics down of what is actually happening before you dive into it. And I guess in a way, you just let the loan officer struggle. You learn from it, and then you're like, okay, I understand how this works, right? So that's one way to do it. A processor is another way to do that, right? So processors actually will look at all the loan documents, they review everything, they check income, because that's something you have to learn how to do. You're going to also learn how to process a loan, what underwriters look for. So kind of understanding that holistic view, because when I got into the business, I'll tell you, it can be overwhelming, right? There's just so much information you have to learn. You have to learn it quick. It's kind of crash and burn. Even with a mentor, it's kind of like, man, there's a lot of things that are happening. Like, I don't understand that. You got to go through it. So I originally started as processing the deals. Then I went into sales. It was a lot easier to understand the transaction, because when people call you, just like you, Lourdes, they're not looking for you to be like, oh, I don't know. Like, how is this going to work? We'll figure it out. Like, it's like you have to have experience, and experience comes from very traumatic things. Or like knowledge comes from experience, right? And like that experience necessarily isn't good, because then you learn like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the way it actually works. This is the way it should be, right? So there's opportunities to go into those. Now, unlike a full loan officer where you can come in part-time, it's pretty easy. It's hard to do that with some of the other roles because they typically are full-time positions. So it's kind of like a give and take on that. I don't know what do you guys have on your end?
Yeah, so I know I have an assistant, a virtual assistant right now, and I do know a lot of teams that do have in-person assistants. So that can be another way to get into the business as well, just so that you can learn. And I know I'm teaching my admin how to use ChatGPT, teaching her how to use Canva, teaching her how to use all these. I think there's like 10 different databases or systems and tools and websites and things like that. So she can kind of take that off of me so I don't have to worry about that. And I can do stuff like this that we're doing right now. So there is the assistant. Let's see, the assistant can range. I know I was going to pay someone part-time to do $500 a week for an in-person assistant, but with the virtual assistant, if you want to be completely virtual, then of course you don't have to ever leave the comfort of your home. I know a lot of students that are doing this, and they run probably anywhere between $1,600 to about $2,000 a month, and that's never leaving the comfort of your home. And if you need a little bit more, then obviously you can go into an office, and then you can make close to anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 based on experience per month.
That's awesome. Yeah. And there's definitely different tiers within that too. Now, does an assistant, like you have different ones, like virtual assistant isn't going to be licensed, but does a assistant have to have a real estate license?
No. So when there's different protocols, what they can and can't do if they're licensed versus if they're unlicensed. So they're licensed, pretty much they can do anything that we do. But if they're unlicensed, then they cannot. There's a lot of restrictions, and there's a ton of them. I'm not going to bore you with everything, but there's certain things that my assistant cannot do and say, and I have to take on that just for legal aspects. So if she drafts a contract, I'm the one that has to send off a contract. She can't do that because I have to review it and just make sure everything is the way that it needs to be. I also review some of the emails, and if there's modifications that need to be corrected, then I go ahead and I say, hey, can you make this correction? I made a mistake, or whatever the case might be. So it's two eyes on one thing, just to make sure everything is good to go. So that's okay. And then there's certain calls she can set appointments, but she can't talk anything about real estate. So there are some or he or she, sorry. So there are some limitations between a licensed and an unlicensed assistant.
Yeah, that's a good point on that, because it's actually the same. I take for granted because like since I'm at a federal bank, I just get everyone gets one, no matter what you do. You take out the trash, you have an MLS license, just because. To your point, like if let's say if you're a loan officer assistant and you don't have an NMLS, you can't talk about rates, you can't talk about certain things. So it's a little bit easier when everyone gets it, but it's a tougher if you're working at like a brokerage, because then it's a process. It's a much heavier lift to do it, right? Plus, like you mentioned, like you have other fees you have to pay. So, but again, you can still work on it while you're an assistant, right? Like if your organization has a program like that, because for banks is pretty straightforward. They already have all this compliance pieces. You just get a federal license, you just sign up and get one, and then they basically are responsible for teaching you everything. And then you have to do compliance every month or every quarter or every year. If you're a loan officer, some places will also pay for that to get like a state license, but a lot of times they rely on you to do it, because you are, yes, you're W-2, but you're still self-employed, right? The nice thing about being in real estate is you get a 1099. And some people are like, oh, 1099s are bad. I'm like, no, you want 1099 because you can write off things. So that's a big difference too. It's like lending side, it's just straight W-2. You cannot be 1099. Lourdes, do you know, can you be W-2? I mean, I guess if you're like a man, like I don't know, like you draw a salary or something, like a managing broker.
So there are some W-2, there's even some brokerages who do W-2s, their salary, and they, even if you sell a lot or you don't sell, like they still pay you. And I think that company is not doing good with that, and they let a ton of people go when the market started to shift. So there are some who do that, and most brokerages. So you have the right as a real estate agent, once you get licensed, to go any brokerage and see what they can offer you, see what type of training, mentorship, guidance that they're going to give to you, and the systems that they have in place. So you have the right to go to anywhere and to see what would be the best fit for you. And then if you need a salary, there are some salary jobs. They're really, really hard to get now compared to a year, 2 years ago when the market was really, really hot. So there are some different companies that do that.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. I think even in lending side where companies are letting people go at mass layoffs just because of where the industry is. But like I'll say to the seasoned folks out there is that it's cyclical. When rates drop again, things will pick up again. But at least if you do it part-time, you can spend the time now learning the things that you're going to need to know once it picks back up. Because if you say that real estate would never pick up, you're in the wrong, you shouldn't even be on this. You shouldn't even be listening to this, right? You should know that it comes back every time and it's always the same story every single time. But the people that you see all the time are always doing fine. Because even in slow markets, people are doing extremely well. It's just depending on what lens you look at it from or how much time you spend, right? Lourdes, did we talk about family life balance?
No.
Did we talk about that?
Work-life balance. No, we can jump right into work-life balance.
Let's do that because we're doing this call. Depending on where you're at, it's in the evening, right? So why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about what are your thoughts on just in general, like work-life balance in real estate? And I'll talk about it from lending.
Yeah, so like how you said, there are some phases of real estate where it's really like we're running. I know when I bought my building, I didn't take a day, and this is not healthy, and I don't recommend it to anybody. But I didn't have a day off in over 400 days. I worked at one point. I think I had about 20 buyers and another 20 under contract or 22 under contract, and I didn't have an admin. I didn't have any leverage. I didn't have nothing. It was just me, and it was crazy. And I, was I'm not going to expose myself. Okay, why not? I was writing contracts when I was driving, not safe at all. And I do not recommend it at all. But I needed someone to drive me so I can write these because I had no leverage at that point. I was running really, really hard and it took a really, really big toll on my family. It's probably why I don't have one now. So that was not my fault. Maybe, I don't know. But so it did. I was working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. every single day, no days off. Sometimes I forgot to eat. I was just running because I didn't believe in the leverage. I felt like I couldn't afford the leverage, although if I had it, I probably could have done a lot more. And I was even doing calls. I would take a quick little nap, doze off, jump right back on a call at 1 o'clock in the morning because my client worked at nights. And we had to submit an offer right away because there's multiple offers and we didn't have a choice. So, and I saw it via video tour. So, I mean, there was like all these crazy things. Now, when the market started to slow down, you caught me in Mexico 3 times. I went from Cabo to Cancun. I was like, woo, 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 from California. I mean, I was out. I took advantage of that time where it started to slow down to really chill, relax, just to come back. And now obviously I can afford it. Whereas before I was like, really focused on buying this building. But David can tell you, after I bought the building, I went crazy. I took 22 days off. Sort of, not all the way off, but I was negotiating deals while sipping some margaritas next to a pool. Although that's probably not a good thing, but I did get to experience a lot. So there's going to be phases. There's going to be some times. One thing that I would let you know that you do have to save for taxes. So don't spend all of your money. You can write a ton of things off, but do not forget about putting some money aside for Uncle Sam, because they will come back and get you with fines and penalties if you don't pay that. So just make sure that you are doing that. And another thing that you also have to do is look at your expenses. So make sure your expenses are you're always reviewing those on it should be a monthly basis. I know I don't do that. And every 3 months when I look down, like, oh my God, I could have cut these expenses
Right.
and did this and did that. So, so yeah, so it's great because as a real estate agent, you have 100% control of managing your schedule. I know my partner does not work at all on Sundays. He's like, that's the day of the Lord. I am not working. And he trains his clients that he's not working. And I say, hey, if you need me to cover and someone needs to see a property on Sunday, then just let me know. And he'll say, yeah, my partner can show you, or we can do it any other day. I'm here,
Right.
I'll work all day. So that being able to train, your clients, that's one thing. When it picks up, really, like when it's crazy, then absolutely yes, then we may need to work a little bit longer hours. But pretty much you control your schedule, and there's also things outside of just showing and the transactions and stuff like that. There's also the networking that you have to do to grow your database. And there's all these other things that you have to do that you're not getting paid directly for, but you can see that in the long run.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot to it. And I'll tell you that I've been doing this for a while, but I got out of the business when the market crashed in 08, 09. Then I joined the military, back to school, and then I went back to the business. So it was a grind to do that. And it's like it's tough because now you look at it and be like, man, I got some life balance, but I remember going in at 7, working till 9 at night, working weekends. When I'm also in the military, so you remember when I had 2000, 2001, I was gone for 2 years. Those 2 years, year and a half military training, came home, wife got pregnant. I left her for 6 months to deploy. Still helped over 200 families a year. And I was working at that time 16-hour days because I finished my duty day for the military. And then because of the time zone difference, I'd kick into the next one. So, but then now you look at today where I'm like, you're right, like things a little bit slower. You're able to save money during that time. I'm going fishing next week. This is like my 3rd time going fly fishing for like a week because I can actually have some downtime, right? And then spend time with
Yeah.
family and
Yeah.
and also this is why probably one of the most important things is people around you to understand what they're signing up for. People on the internet, social media make it seem like it is the most glamorous job in the world. Yes, you control your schedule, meaning that I don't even know what that means because it's like I don't know, like because I don't know, like a good example, because like you're almost at the demands of clients too. Like you guys work, like I could work anywhere and I'm like 7-Eleven, right? Always open, but not always doing business. Right? I don't work the weekends like you do, Lourdes. I work mostly days and nights. But then I'm always available. Like anybody needs anything, they call me on the weekend. I got to be able to respond because it's someone's livelihood. Not like life is on the line, but like their family's future is on the line for that house. Like you're making an offer. Guess what? I gotta be available at 7 p.m. on a Saturday night, which I always respond and I always call. Sunday, we need to do something, we do it. Right? We got to do stuff in the evenings. Like this stuff, this is more of us giving back, like with our VA housing education stuff, but still like events. So someone's got to really understand that how that really works, right? Not don't
Yeah.
paint too rosy of a picture. Like there's downsides, but there's huge upsides to it because you can make unlimited. It's not like a regular job where you go to work. People complain about this all the time, and I'm always like, well, why don't you go take control of your life and do this? And they're like, oh no, that's too much risk in that. So that's why you have that balance, right? You work for somebody. You work 9 to 5. Out of that 9 to 5, you maybe work 2 hours statistically. right?
Mm-hmm.
In our job, you work 8 hours, you're going to have a crazy amount of return on that, right? You're not going to be limited to 60,000. You want to make $1 million a year, you can do it because people do it.
Yeah.
It's up to you to be able to do that and take control of it. And you can't complain to someone like, oh, I didn't do it this month. Lourdes and I are accountability partners. So we call each other every week. We're on the phone for an hour and we hold each other accountable. Right? So that's an easy way to also have like accountability partners to help you and grow. Then we've been doing that now for what, 2 years?
Just
I think
about,
2
yeah.
years now.
Yeah. Even when I was injured, David did not.
Even when you were
did not
injured, I was
let
like,
me.
no.
That was like, I can't.
Just because you can't talk
She
doesn't
made
mean you
me.
can't talk. Yeah, so we've had a lot of good times together with Lourdes and I. I mean, we met about 6-7 years ago when you first moved here.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, and that was just kind of that was a long time ago. It's been a journey to get to where we are today. That's why we wanted to share with you guys what some of these things look like. If you're interested in learning more, you can always reach out to us. You can go to vahousingeducation.com. Our information is under the partner section on vahousingeducation.com, and you can reach out to us and just ask us to set up a time. We're always happy to walk through if you have more questions. If you're looking for employment opportunities, there could be also an opportunity in that. We're always happy to answer that. Like I said, we love giving back to the community, and we're always looking for good people to join our team. Or if you need a different fit, we're happy to introduce you to other people. So, Lourdes, any closing thoughts?
Well, we do have a few people on, so if there's any questions, you can go ahead and put that in the chat. And, I think that, if you want to have a more in-depth conversation, like how you said, definitely reach out because there's a lot that goes to it. And both David and I were open books. So if you want to really know the good and the bad, and if it's going to be a good fit for you, then definitely reach out. Both David and I we're grinders, so we're out there. And I remember when he was on deployment, and that was at the time that I was working around the clock, and we had some clients that were like, "Oh yeah, David is answering at 11 p.m. at night. Like that's so cool." And I'm all like, "If you only knew." And I wouldn't tell nobody that he was deployed. So I would never say like, "Oh yeah, he's deployed." But it was awesome because we did have that 24-hour service. So I was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." Not good for me because I worked pretty late all the time and really early in the mornings as well. I did my admin in the mornings and I did the transactions during the day, and then I did all the follow-ups at night. So it was it was crazy, but I'm glad that it is where it is right now. And then like how David said, when the interest rates drop, it's gonna start to go up again. And what better time to really get immersed in this world right now so that you are prepared, ready to go when it's time to grind. So
Right.
we do.
That's the.
Mhm.
Hey, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, David.
Yeah, that's the key to all this, right? It's just like be prepared. And then you guys can always come back to this video and be like, they were right. Rates dropped, housing values went back up. And it's just going to be, it's the same old story that we've seen in person. I used to not be a believer, but I've been through it so many times where I'm like, I just give up. I'm like, some people get it, some people don't. But again, this is why we do a lot of education. So I know somebody asked us about access to this video. So it is being streamed not only on Zoom, we have this on Zoom if you've registered for the class, but also on LinkedIn, YouTube. So again, YouTube is just VA Housing Education. Please like and share, subscribe. And, if you have friends or family, we do presentations all the time around the VA benefits and specialty classes like this. We have more classes coming up. So again, check out vahousingeducation.com to see our upcoming schedule and let us know if you have any questions. Like I said, you can reach out to us on that through our partners page on vahousingeducation.com. So with that, we'll close up, and then feel free again to reach out, and we'll talk to you guys soon.